Hi and welcome to another video. Today I will be giving you a tour on my 2024 library in Notion. I shared my 2023 library last year and so much have changed, and I'm very proud of the changes that I have adapted for this year. If you want to check out my previous library setup, there is a link in the description or you can visit my channel. One of the major things that was added this year is the inclusion of my manhwa and mangas in my overall library. Before, the sole purpose of my library was everything about books, but now the library has been split into two categories, books and manhwas. Reading manhwas is one of my recent obsessions, and of course, I have to make a dedicated page for it in my Notion. At first, it was included in my media hub, but I realized that it fits more in the library rather than to be mixed in with my other medias like animes, mangas, and movies. I won't be getting into great details on most book pages of my library since there were no major changes except for one particular page, so if you want more in-depth tour of those pages, you can check out my video for my 2023 tour. So this video will mostly focus on the new pages and the addition of the manhwa databases. This year, I still wanted to have a more neat page and that everything has a place, and most importantly, it does not look cluttered or disorganized. On the upper part of my main page are my navigations and notes. The entire page is split into two, the left are for my books and the right are for my manhwas. The pages are neatly organized in their respective callout blocks and are synced into multiple pages for easier access and editing. I have two counters or trackers. One is for the books that I've read this year and the other is for my overall manhwa tracker. Then I have a playlist for ambience when reading, goals for this year, and a quote from last year. An area for notes, and then my ratings. This is the basis for my ratings for both books and manhwas. Then on the right side is navigation for my manhwa pages, a collage of some of my favorite reads, and a quote from the omniscient reader's viewpoint that really resonated with me. Next part is my currently reading area. The view on the left side are for my books and audiobooks, and on the other side are my manhwas. The sessions are my reading timers, which I will further explain later since it has a whole separate database. Moving on, these are my recently read areas. Split into two, you can see the book title, the reading date of when I read it. The TBR view is slightly different since the publication of books and manhwas are different. When a book is released, it's released in full, while in manhwas, you kind of have to wait. So I made the status property of the page visible so I can see if it's ongoing, if it's on hiatus and waiting for the next season, or is it completed. And then we have a view of my trackers still separated. I have a monthly and yearly tracker for both books and manhwas, and I purposely have them on different covers so I can easily identify which is which. And then below are my trackers in gallery form and in calendar forms. At the bottom of the main page is my bookshelf, and it's basically just a gallery of books, manhwas, authors, and series that I have on my databases. Now let's start the tour of my manhwas. I have four major pages for my manhwas: the manhwa database, my manhwa world, my yearly tracker, and then my studio. I have an overall view. You can see the cover, the title, the genre, the tropes, and the synopsis. I have filtered views for manhwas that is currently ongoing, my plan to read or TBR, what I'm currently reading, manhwas that I'm taking a break from, to finished, and DNF'd. I have a view of some of my favorite reading options, which I'm not gonna mention, but you can see it. Reading through official sites and apps are of course encouraged, but if in some ways you can't, you gotta do what you gotta do. right? I also have a separate view that I used for mass editing. So this view I can change or move things so it's easier to edit a lot at the same time. And if you notice at the top of the page, I have this database on live so I can share my manhwa list with friends. My manhwa pages are very similar to my book pages since they have quite similar purposes. I have my status, reading date, number of hours I have read it, current chapters, and other more detailed information of the manhwa. I still want to keep it neat so everything is clustered together and more finer details are within callout blocks. On the left side of the page are information, characters, sessions, and gallery, while on the right side are links, both within the Notion and external reading links, both official and not so official sites. Manhwa World is basically a big encyclopedia. I have a similar page for books, but I think making this encyclopedia for manhwas are easier because characters actually have official photos and images while books doesn't, and I didn't want to add like a random person's face on my book encyclopedias, so it's not as colorful or informative as this one. So this encyclopedia has different databases that are linked together. It's a bit confusing, but it works. So I have my encyclopedia of characters, places, pets, an overall word dictionary, and an overall gallery. The character database are basically profile pages so that I can take note on certain characters. I tried to make the properties as broad or as general as possible since I both read modern and historical genres. It has properties for gender, living status, it's if they're alive or dead somewhere, affiliated places, which is linked to my places database, physical markers like hair or eye colors, occupation, social status, if they have special abilities, applicable to characters on my fantasy genre, photos, and notes. On the page itself, I can add more detailed information about the character, their relationships, history, abilities, quotes, and etc. And of course, I added a web bookmark block so that I can add a link for further research or for reference. The places database is very simple and I only use it so that I can cluster together characters that are affiliated to specific locations or kingdoms. The pets database is also basically a profile page but for pets, and it's linked to multiple other databases like its owner, species type, and etc. The dictionary is something that I'm still working on. It has your typical dictionary for words that are unique to a certain manhwaverse, species or family, houses, or clans for historical and Murim genre manhwas. And then the gallery is just an overall gallery for any image within the manhwa pages. And this database is also on live for others to see. My manhwa tracker page has the same function as that of my tracker for my books, so I'm not gonna further explain it since it's also kind of self-explanatory. The studio is probably one of my favorite pages on the library right now. There's only one page in the studio and the rest are inline views of other databases for my manhwas. So this is basically a more condensed page of my main page, but it's only for manhwa contents. The only page on my manhwa studio is the sessions page. So within that page, I have two databases. One is for my sessions and the other is for timesheets. I was inspired by a creator I no longer remember where or who, and I don't remember if it was used in this context, but it is very similar. So when I'm starting a manhwa, I would create a session page, basically like a reading session log. So it has to have a date on when I started reading and then linked to a specific manhwa. There are two important buttons, which are the start and the end button. There is a table view of any timesheet that is created during this session. So basically, timesheets are like the timers and the sessions are like the logbooks. When I click the start button, a timesheet will automatically be created and linked into this session page. And when I click the end button, it will edit the recently created page, mark it as ended, and log in the time. Then calculate the minutes, then 2 hours of my reading time. It's a bit harder to explain specifically, a little bit confusing, but the system works wonderfully. Below the timesheet are areas for note-takings and adding characters and places for my encyclopedia. So that's the end of my tour. I hope you enjoyed this video. There is a link to a template for my original library database. It's still the same system, but my current library has a bit more added functions. I'm still working on creating that template. If you want to use it for books or manhwas, you can, because it's basically the same but minor differences. I also shared a Media Hub template. I have a video for my Media Hub if you want to check that out. Links are on the description. If you also want to see the link for my manhwa list, it's also on the description below. So thank you for watching. Bye!